Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sathology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means a study of science, Sathology means a science of truth, study of truth. It is a true antonym to mythology. Myth means a lie, fake, imagination, and mythology has been used. The mythology actually means a science of fake or study of fake, lie, or imagination. This word was purposely coined by the Western to tell the Indians that their history has no basis. And now, but only thing was they did not know Sanskrit. Problem, they did not know Sanskrit. So if the literatures are written in Sanskrit language, they had to rely on translators. And they chose the translators who would represent their own mind. And that's why you have so much of lack of faith amongst Hindus who read these translations. My advice to you is, if you are from India and you can read Sanskrit, that is the best. If you do not, still try to read these literatures in your own language, whether it's a Hindi, Tamil, English, not English, Telugu, or any other regional language. You use that because those languages are more complete than English. English is a business language created in England for the purpose of transaction. It has no emotions. It is not a complete language in any way. And it is a business language. Now we are speaking in English because we are talking to a different audience, English speaking audience. And many people in India understand English. So we have a very special guest who has done a lot of research on Mahabharata. And you saw his last video on 24 evidences of Mahabharata, which was super hit. And it was also, there was another show on Where is Ravana's Lanka. All of you have loved it. Now, in this will be a concluding part of the Mahabharata timelines. And after that, we'll take up some lot of other areas we need to discuss about Adi Sankaracharya's date, about Christianity's original dates, all those things we're going to talk about. So without delay, let us welcome Dr. M.L. Raja.
Namaskar, namaskar.
And Dr. M.L. Raja is also an eye doctor from, you're based out of Chennai?
Near Chennai, Trichy.
Trichy, beautiful
Trichy,
town.
in
Beautiful
Tamil
town. Beautiful
Yeah.
town.
Near Srirangam,
Near Srirangam.
Vishnu
Beautiful
temple,
town. Yes.
the famous Vishnu
Famous, where Vishnu is lying down.
temple. Yeah,
It's a beautiful temple.
in
See,
the
India-
island of Kaveri.
Yes.
It is actually an island
Mhm.
within the river Kaveri.
Yeah. It's a beautiful temple. And it's the only
Yeah.
temple where it's a huge deity of Vishnu, which is lying down.
Yes.
And if the pujari is happy with you, he takes the lamp over the entire part of the body of Vishnu. And you have to see it from a small window, a small door. It is there, small door. I've been there. So, Dr. Raja, before we start off, we have conclusively proved that Mahabharata timelines are not as per what Western academics claim or Indologists who claim to follow a Western thought process claim. And also syncretism or trying to uniform all dates to suit the Vatican's dates about their own history. That is not correct, because even yesterday we were discussing with some other person, even Shankaracharya came before Christ, even before that, according to him. And so today, when we talk, what is the point we're going to bring today from this discussion? So today, when we're talking about Mahabharata timelines,
Yeah, Mahabharata.
what are the
actually,
evidences we'll bring forth here today?
we have told that there are 24 astronomical events described by Vedavyasa in Mahabharata text. And based on the trigonometric and astronomical calculations detailed in the ancient astronomical texts like Surya Siddhanta, Aryabhattiyam, etc., we derive a year in which all these astronomical events will be satisfied. So, in the first part, I have told that what are all the astronomical events described, and the introduction part, and the second part, how I have derived, how I applied this astronomical and trigonometric calculations, and also the statistics described within those texts, ancient texts, and based on that calculations, how I derived the date. Now, after analyzing 2301 years, that is from 4300 to 2000 BC. Out of these 2300 years, which year satisfies these graha positions, that is the planetary positions, and also the occurrence of lunar eclipse followed by solar eclipse in the same month within 13 days. So based on these 24 events described, in which year these things will be satisfied, that we have to analyze. And after analyzing it, I have proved how each data, each astronomical event is satisfied with my year. That is my concluding part, along with some concluding remarks on this analysis I will add now. That is the presentation today.
So you can go ahead to start with the presentation, and I'll ask you questions if there is any in the middle.
Okay. Namaskar to all. Good morning. As I have been introduced as Dr. M.L. Raja, eye surgeon. I am having a reputed and respected executive, academic, and administrative responsibility in 3 universities in Tamil Nadu. That is Alagappa University and Tamil University in Tanjavur, and also Bharathidasan University in Tiruchirappalli, Tamil Nadu. All these 3 universities, I have having academic and also administrative responsibilities. That is member syndicate and planning board member and member syndicate. In this, I am going to discuss about the concluding part of the analysis of the date of Mahabharata and also Kali Yuga beginning. See, I have discussed all the 24 events that are helpful to fix the Mahabharata year precisely. In this, I will analyze each and every positions of the graha, that is planet position and star and satellite position. For example, Veda Vyasa has told Sri Krishna told that the Mahabharata war has to be started on the 7th day. That falls on Amavasya, and the nakshatra was Jesha Nakshatra. In Hindu astronomy, they will usually tell what nakshatra today is. That is based on the conjunction of moon with that particular nakshatra. They have divided the ecliptic belt, that is in which the earth revolves around the sun. That 30 degree above, 30 degree below, that ecliptic line in which earth revolves around, that is divided into that ecliptic belt into 27 nakshatra. And since moon revolves around the earth almost in the same horizontal plane, just 5.15 degree tilting. So the moon also on every day, it also completes on revolution in 27.26 days. So in almost each day, it will be in conjunction with any one star of these 27 ecliptic stars. So we will call this day, if we were, that is Purvashada Nakshatra today, means the moon is in conjunction with the Purvashada Nakshatra. So this, since Sri Krishna mentioned that it is Jesha Nakshatra, then moon should be at Jesha Nakshatra. You see, moon, it is Jesha Nakshatra, and Jesha Nakshatra is situated in the Virichika zodiac sign. This ecliptic pathway of the earth is divided into 27 nakshatra from Ashwini to Meena, and the same way it was divided into 12 zodiac signs from Mesha, that is Aries, to Meena, Pisces, like that. So this is Virichika zodiac sign. In that Jesha Nakshatra is situated. Since Sri Krishna mentioned that it is a Jesha Nakshatra day, so moon should be at Jesha Nakshatra. And Sri Krishna further mentioned that it is an Amavasya day, that is new moon day. On a new moon day, the sun and moon will be in the same longitude. They will be in conjunction. So this Jesha Nakshatra, moon and sun will be in conjunction. Because on new moon day, even we see from earth, the moon and sun will be in conjunction. That is why we call it as, in Sanskrit, Amavasya. Ama means with, Vasya means dwelling. So moon is situated nearer to or at sun's longitude. That is the meaning of Amavasya. Each word in Sanskrit is coined with a meaning. So sun should be at Jesha Nakshatra, and because sun and moon are Jesha Nakshatra, they satisfy Vedavyasa's first point to second point, and also they aspect Rohini Nakshatra, because sun and moon have opposite aspect, seventh aspect. So Rohini is exactly opposite to, so it satisfies Vedavyasa's words. And the third thing is Jupiter. What Vedavyasa mentioned about Jupiter's position, first thing he mentioned that Jupiter is nearer to Visaha Nakshatra. Visaha is situated here, off in 3/4 in Tula zodiac sign and 1/4 in Virichika zodiac sign. So this Vishaga next to is Anuradha. So Jupiter situated at Anuradha as my derivation satisfies this astronomical event described by Vedavyasa. Further, Vedavyasa mentioned that it aspects Rohini Nakshatra. So this also satisfies. So Jupiter situated in Anuradha aspected Rohini. And further, as per Parasara's Hora Shastra, this Virichika zodiac sign is Sthira Rasi. So all Sthira Rasi will aspect Chara Rasi. This is Chara Rasi, that is Makara Rasi. Makara Rasi is Chara Rasi. In that Saravana Nakshatra is situated. So through this Jupiter aspected Saravana Nakshatra. So that point also satisfied. And coming to Saturn, Saturn, what Vedavyasa mentioned is that it is nearer to Visaga Nakshatra. And Visaga Nakshatra is here and Jesha is here, just one nakshatra away from that. And what Vedavyasa and Karna mentioned that it aspected Rohini and affected Rohini badly. So from Jesha Nakshatra, it can affect Rohini Nakshatra because it has a seventh aspect. Further, it also affected Purva Palguni, which is situated in Simha zodiac sign here. So from here, by its 10th drishti, 10th aspect, it also affected Purva Palguni. So all these 3 points concerned with Saturn is satisfied if Saturn is placed in Jesha Nakshatra in Virichika zodiac sign. My derivation correctly placed Saturn here. Some people are telling that it is Rohini Nakshatra, but what Vedavyasa mentioned in that is, it is affecting not only Rohini Nakshatra, it also affects animals. If we take in that sense, then we have to conclude that Jupiter is placed with animals. So it is not possible. Saturn is placed with animals. Saturn is lying in the space, animals are in the earth. So it aspects, only looks at animals and affected. Like that, it looks at Rohini and affected. So that satisfies. And coming to Mars, what Mars, Vedavyasa told 4 points. That is, it moves towards Anuradha Nakshatra. My derivation fixed Mars at Vishaga Nakshatra next to Anuradha. So it is moving towards Anuradha Nakshatra. So that is also satisfied. And it affects Jyeshta Nakshatra because as per Kumara Swamyam and many ancient astronomical texts, Mars has Nakshatra Drishti. That is from where, in which Nakshatra is Mars is situated. From there, it can aspect 3rd, 7th, 8th and 15th Nakshatra. And Jupiter is 3rd Nakshatra from Vishaga. So it affected Jyeshta Nakshatra. So that is also satisfied. And this Mars has 4th Drishti. So from this Vishaga Nakshatra, it affected Saravana Nakshatra, which is situated from the 4th zodiac sign. And Tula is a Chara Rasi and this Simha is Sthira Rasi. So from here, it can affect Maha Nakshatra, which is situated in Simha zodiac sign. So all these 4 points are satisfied by my derivation. And coming to Venus, what Vedavyasa mentions it aspected it looks attentively at Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra. This is Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra. Venus has only one drishti, that is seventh aspect. So it must be in Kanya zodiac sign. But as per my derivation, it is in Swati Nakshatra. That is just a few degrees away from Kanya. But Veda Vyasa mentioned it in present tense. So what is the meaning of that means? We have to apply Sanskrit grammar here. So as Aditya ji told, we should know Sanskrit. He correctly pointed out. Because Panini's Ashtadhyaya in third Adhyaya, third chapter, 131 mantra, sloka, it mentions that the present tense can be used for near past and near future. So 20 days back, Venus was at Kanya zodiac sign. That was expressed by Vedavyasa. And because it was situated in Kanya zodiac sign and aspected Uttara Bhadrapada and Purva Bhadrapada, that only stimulated the war situation. So that is also satisfied. Second should be, Venus should be, the maximum elongation of Venus should be 45 to 47 degree. That means it should be within 45 to 47 degree from Sun. So my derivation shows it is only 35.75 degree. So that is also satisfied. And coming to Mercury, the maximum elongation of Mercury is 18 to 28 degree. My derivation fixes Mercury at Anuradha Nakshatra, which is 14.75 degree from Sun. So its elongation limit also satisfied. So, and coming to eclipses, Rahu, because Karna and Vyasa both mentioned that is Rahu is approaching Sun. That means there will be a solar eclipse at Amavasya, which occurs in Jesha Nakshatra. So in Jesha Nakshatra, Amavasya means moon will be at Jeshta, as we have seen, and sun also should be at Jeshta. So the Rahu sun or Rahu moon longitude difference, that is the limit of eclipse, must be 15.4 to 18.4 degree. So the deviation of Rahu from sun, it should be within 15.4 degree for total solar eclipse and within 18.4 degree for partial solar eclipse. So Rahu should be at Jesha Nakshatra. Then only it satisfies the condition of solar eclipse. My derivation shows that Rahu is at Jesha Nakshatra and it is just 1.5 degree away from Sun. The limit is 15.4 degree. So there is a complete total solar eclipse occurred on that day. So that is also satisfied. And the another condition what Vyasa Vyasa mentioned is that 13 days prior to this solar eclipse, that is Amavasya, on the day of Paurnami, that is full moon, a lunar eclipse occurred. So that also should be satisfied. And moon should be away from Ketu or Rahu, that is ascending or descending node of moon, as in modern astronomy. The maximum limit is 12.2 degree, but in the 2019 year, it occurred with 14.5 degree limit itself. So there should be a limit of less than 14.5 degree. My derivation shows that the difference between Ketu, that is descending node of moon, and moon is only 11.5 degree. So there is a definite possibility of lunar eclipse. So that is also satisfied. So all these Graha positions, that is planetary position, satellite position, and star position like sun, moon, and other planets, and also the occurrence of lunar and solar eclipses, all these things are satisfied with my date, that is 3143 BC. And the most important thing is there is a rare conjunction. You see, all these graha are accumulated here in the year 3143 BC at Kartika Amavasya day, that is last day of Kartika, as by Amanta calculation. So see, these places, there is no graha at all, except this Ketu at Mrigashirisha Vrishabha zodiac sign. There is no graha here. There is no graha here. All these graha are accumulated because Ketu always it is 180 degree away from Rahu. So it cannot be here. That's why it is there. And you see, Venus is just away from Vrichika zodiac sign, few degrees. And Mars is just 2 or 3 or 4 degree away from Vrichika zodiac sign. So all these 7 graha are almost in the Vrichika zodiac sign. That is Moon, Rahu, that is ascending node of Moon, Sun, Saturn, Mercury, Jupiter, and Mars. It is not only that, because Rahu is very close to Sun and Moon, there is also Rahu Grasta, that is Rahu affected solar eclipse on that day. That is an important thing. And the third important thing is, it all occurred, the solar eclipse and the conjunction of all these 7 graha occurred in Vrichika zodiac sign. Who is the god of this Vrichika zodiac sign? Who is the Lord? That is Mars. Mars is the planet for war and blood. So that's why it induced war. You can understand all these 3 points. There is a Rahu Grasta solar eclipse, and all the 7 graha are within Vrichika zodiac sign, and Vrichika zodiac sign is ruled by Mars, and Mars is the planet for graha for war and blood. That's why war happened. We should understand this thing. This is an important thing. These are all, thus it all satisfied the 24 conditions put forth by Vedavyasa, Sri Krishna, and Karna. And all these conditions, out of these 2301 years, from 4301 to 2000 BCE, only 1 year satisfies all these things, that is 3143 BC. And another 3 important points are Bhishma Nirvana. Bhishma Nirvana, as per Mahabharata text of Vedavyasa, it happened on the Magha month, Shukla Paksha, Ashtami Tithi, Rohini Nakshatra, in the mid-noon. So, this moon will travel all the 27 nakshatra in 27 days, almost 27.27, so like that. So, Rohini nakshatra from Rohini 1 round and another round to Rohini. So, 54 to 55 days. So, what Sri Krishna told, that is only after the 11th day, Bhishma has to live for 56 days. So this completes 54 days, 55 days. So from Rohini, 1 or 2 days before is the 10th day of Mahabharata War. That is 10th day of Mahabharata War must be at Ashwini or Bharani Nakshatra. That is the thing. And the 56 days is satisfied with that. How it is satisfied, I will say. First of all, in 7 days or 8 days in the Magha month, and 30 days in Pushya month, and 19 days in Margashirsha month. So that satisfies 56 days. So 19 days in Margashirsha month means there are 11 days remaining. So that means the war happened began at either first or second Tithi, that is Prathama or Ditiya Tithi of Margashirsha month. That also satisfied. So in Tithi calculations also, in Nakshatra calculations also, it satisfies that the war happened at Purva Ashada Nakshatra or Uttara Ashada Nakshatra, Tidiya or Tritiya Tithi of Shukla Paksha of Margashirsha month. So that is also satisfied. And since Bhishma attained Mukti in Magha month, so already the vernal equinox, that is the Uttarayana Punya Kalam, has started 7 days back. That is why we celebrated Saptarishi, Saptaratha. That is on the 7th day, Saptatidhi, the sun's turning will be completed and it starts moving towards north. On the next day, Bhishma Bhakti. So, Radha Saptami we call it. So, we are celebrating Radha Saptami and also Bhishma Bhakti in the Magha month. So, that is also satisfied. Then coming to Balarama's Saraswati River Tirtha Yatra. First, Balarama, after the division of Sri Krishna's army, that is Sri Krishna on one side without taking any arms, and the whole Narayana army on one side, and Arjuna selected Sri Krishna. So that's why where Sri Krishna will be there, there will be Dharma, there will be victory. So he won. So after that, Balarama started Tirtha Yatra and Anuradha Nakshatra as per the sloka given in Salyam Parva. And on hearing, that is, on Sravana means on hearing the Gada Yuddha between Bhima and Duryodhana, he returned to Kurukshetra to see that Gada Yuddha. Sravana means hearing. From that word only, Sravana Nakshatra got the name as Sravana. Because on Sravana Nakshatra, we should hear good things. So on hearing the Gada Yuddha from Narada, he returned on the 42nd day from Anuradha Nakshatra to Kurukshetra. So in between, after Anuradha Nakshatra, in between the Saraswati Nadi Tirtha Yatra, he wanted to know what is the result of Sri Krishna's peace mission. So he came to Upaplavyam, where Sri Krishna explained the failure of the peace mission. On that day is Pushya Nakshatra. So after in Pushya also, he, because it is failed, he started again, continued his Tirtha Yatra. That's why that mentioned as Pushya. And rejoined them on hearing Sravana, that Gada Yuddha. That I explained. So 10 days from Anuradha is the Bharani Nakshatra. Maybe Paurnami occurred on the 4th day itself. And 10 days from there, and 13 days from Paurnami, Kartika Paurnami to Amavasya, as mentioned by Vedavyasa. And 1 day after Amavasya, the war started, and 18 days of war, so 42 days. That is also satisfied. And my conclusion, the date of Mahabharata war, we cannot fix it individually as per astronomical evidence alone. That we should remember. So as per these astronomical events, that is the positions of Navagraha and the occurrence of lunar eclipse and solar eclipse at 13 days interval within the same month of Kartika, and also the internal evidence found in Mahabharata text that I will explain later, and also the chronology of 3 kingdoms, that is Kuru, Ikshvaka and Magadha kingdom, as per Vishnu and other Purana, that also I will explain. And the traditional calculation of Saptarishi era, Vikrama era, Salivakana and other era, and the writings of Aryabhatta, Vriddhagarga and Varakimera, Kalidasa, and the most important thing is the 436 plus inscriptional evidence, and the Bhishma Mukti, Balarama's pilgrimage, and rise of moon after sunset, because I have told that the war started 1 or 2 days after Amavasya. So the 14th day of war must be in the second Ditiya Tithi of Krishna Paksha. At that time, because it is Krishna Paksha, the moon rise after 1.5 hours to 2 hours after sunset. So that is also satisfied. So all these things should be satisfied before coming to a conclusion. We cannot fix just because it is astronomical evidence, so is this date. Because if the astronomical evidence, all these 24 points, if they are satisfied in the year 2021, present year, we cannot fix that this is the Mahabharata year. So we should consider all other aspects also. And my conclusion is 3143 BCE, because it is not only satisfies astronomical, all these things are satisfied in that year. And the most important thing is we have to calculate the method of calculation, which one is correct, we have to understand. Because all this software, they use Julian or Gregorian calendar, and they use precision of equinox. Precision of equinox means that is the cutting point between the ecliptic of the earth. That is the pathway of earth around the sun, and also the equator of the earth. That is, if you extend it, it's a celestial equator. This celestial equator and the ecliptic cut at a point that is known as vernal and autumn equinox. As per nowadays, they thought that it continuously drifts backward at a speed, velocity of 50.29 seconds of war per year. That is 1 degree in 71.6 years. So, based on this, we can calculate that to complete one revolution, it takes 25,772 years. During this period, the season will continue to vary by 12 months. Suppose in this aspect, April month, this is the rainy season. After 25,772 years, again April month will be rainy season. That is the calculation. So 360° for 12 months. So based on that, if you calculate that Mahabharata war happened as per derivation 5,000 years, or some say 7,500 years before. So that means every 2,000 years and odd, there will be a change of 1 month season. So for 5,000, it is 2.5 months. 7,500, it may be 3 or 4 months. So at least 2 to 3 month change of season should be there. That's then only we can accept that this precision of equinox calculation and also software calculation. And that what I explained. Suppose in 2014, the vernal equinox is March 21. In 15,004, it will be an autumn equinox. That is, this is Vasanta Ritu, this is Sarad Ritu. So the change, maybe there will be change. But during Mahabharata, as per Mahabharata text, what it describes, what is the season it says? If you see that, as per evidence given by Vedavyasa and Udyoga Parva, it is Kartika month and the season is end part of Sarad Ritu and Hemanta Ritu is going to begin. So in Kartika month, the Sarad Ritu is the second month. So the Asvajuya month and Kartika month, they are the Sarad Ritu during Mahabharata period. In Vana Parva also it shows that Sarad Ritu is in Kartika. So the present day season is same thing. Sarad Ritu is Asvajuja and Kartika. So there is no seasonal changes. There is no, at least 2 to 3 months, there should be season change. That means Sarad Ritu, as per this software calculation, it should be in Margasirsa Pushya month or Pushya and Magha month, and definitely not in Asvajuja and Kartika month. So this shows that contradicts the software deviation, especially the date that is 7,580 years before present. That date is totally contradicted. So what is the correct method? We have to use the Nirayana position, where we need not use this precision of equinox calculation. From Nirayana, Mahabharata text describe the Graha position and occurrence of eclipses in Nirayana position. That is without taking into account of this precision of equinox. And all the astronomical texts of our nation, they use calculations only for Nirayana. They are also not taking into account of the precision of equinox. So the astronomical data and calculations in astronomical texts of our nation is the best method and correct method to derive the Mahabharata date as per this seasonal evidence. And I already explained the date of Mahabharata war should be coherent, harmonious, concurrent, coherent, and corroborative chronologically through Kali Yuga epoch. Because Mahabharata text clearly mentioned that there is a minimum of 36 years gap between Kali Yuga beginning and Mahabharata date. And the epigraphical evidence clearly mentioned that Kali Yuga began in 310 BC. That also should satisfy. And Saptarishi era, and chronology of all three kingdoms, and Vikrama, Salivagana, and other era, and also the writings of Aryabhatta, etc. That also should satisfy. So this is the evidence. The Mahabharata war occurred 36 years, minimum of 36 years before Kali Yuga. These are all the evidence in Veni Parva. This number is Adhyaya number, this is Sloka number. Adi Parva, Vana Parva, Salya Parva, Mausala Parva, Santi Parva, Mahaprasthanika Parva, and also Stri Parva, and Bhishma Parva, and Sabha Parva. All these clearly mentions that Mahabharata war happened in Dwapara Yuga end part, that is 36 years minimum of before Kali Yuga. And when Kali Yuga began, that if we know that, we can easily fix the Mahabharata date. Based on the Vishnu Purana, these are all the Adhyaya number and Sloka number. You can verify. and also Brahmanda Purana, Brahma Purana, and Matsya Purana, Vayu Purana, and Srimad Bhagavatam. All these they clearly mention that when Sri Krishna left the world, the Kali entered the earth. So the Kali Yuga began when Sri Krishna has left the world. So Sri Krishna is the main person in Mahabharata War. So definitely Mahabharata War happened before Kali Yuga. And this 436 plus inscriptions, I have to thank Aditya ji. I have to actually presented this as a first lecture in Satalaji. I have explained in detail. Anybody want to have more detail, they can verify that lecture. This 436 plus inscriptions clearly shows that the Kali Yuga epoch is in 3101 BCE. This also should be satisfied. This is one of the photo of the inscription in Tamil Nadu. This is another inscription. This is in Tamil letter. This is in Grantha, some Sanskrit language. This is my book, which all describes all these 436 inscriptions. And another important thing is, in Mahabharata text itself, in the Santi Parva, these are all the sloka number in various editions, 348, 339, 339, and 327. These are all the various numbers of the Adhyaya and sloka number. In all these things, Mahabharata clearly point out that the Rama Avatara, that Rama came to earth at the end of Treta Yuga, that is Treta and Dwapara junction. And Sri Krishna born in Dwapara and Kali Yuga junction. So from Rama, that is Ramayana to Mahabharata, there is one Yuga gap, that is Dwapara Yuga gap. Dwapara Yuga, as per many Purana, especially Skanda Purana, it mentions that Dwapara Yuga has 8,64,000 years. So, based on that, if you calculate, there must be at least 17,000 to 20,000 kings ruled between Rama and Krishna. In our ancient Purana, they cannot mention all these 20,000 names of the kings. So, they mention only a few names. So, there may be difference between one person to another person. One person may consider this is important. Another person consider this is important. So, that is why there is variation in this list of kings ruled by in between Rama and Sri Krishna. So it is more than 20,000 kings. So we cannot narrate all these things. That we should understand, because it is as per the internal evidence of Mahabharata. I am quoting only Mahabharata. These are all the internal evidence, and all the editions of this, it is mentioned like this. And in the seasonal variation also, like Mahabharata date, in Ramayana also, there is no seasonal change between the present day and Ramayana day. Because in Kishkinda Kanda and Ayodhya, this Varsha Ritu is started in the Sravana and Bhadrapada month, and Ashada month is before Varsha Ritu, and Vasanta Ritu started in Chaitra month. As per present day also it started in Vasanta Ritu in Chaitra month and Varsha Ritu in Sravana. So there is no change. So if we say that Ramayana happened at 12,000 BCE, as per precision of equinox calculation, there must be a 6 months change in the seasons. There is no like that change. So it disproves that Ramayana date at 12,000 BC. And another thing is, I want to clarify the genealogical evidence. As per Vayu Purana, Matsya Purana, and Brahmanda Purana, you can see in the each 2 or 3 Adhyaya, they exclusively detail the chronology of Magadha kingdom, giving each dynasty's rule, years of rule, and also each king's ruling years. So you can verify in all these Vayu Purana, and Matsya Purana, and Brahmanda Purana. In that, from Mahabharata, the first dynasty is Brihadrata Vamsham, that is 1000 years. Pradyodha dynasty 138 years. Shishunaga dynasty 362 years. So after that only Mahabhatmananda is crowned. So from Mahabharata time only Parikshit born. So from Parikshit to Mahabhatmananda, you can see that it is exactly 1500 years. Why there is variation? Because during copying, especially during the British period, they want to reduce our antiquity, and also they want to uh, include in our mind a sense of doubt, confusion on our antiquity. So they changed some words. That is why the problem. Either wantedly or unknowingly, it has been changed. So if you go in detail, they clearly mention that there is 1500 years gap. So there is no 1015, 1050, 1115 like that. It is clearly mentioned 1500 years. There is no doubt it. We cannot doubt our Quran. And another thing is Srimad Bhagavat. It mentioned 1115 years. This is Nandivardhana, who is the last king of Pradyodha dynasty. So from Parikshat to his place is 1118 years. So this also satisfies. And coming to the evidence shown by another scholar by Skanda Purana, that is there is a gap of 3000 something, 3300 years from Parikshat to Mahapadmananda. Actually, you can see the sloka. That is Trishu Sahasreshu. Adityaji clearly mentioned that we ought to understand Sanskrit. He correctly pointed out. I like that thing. Actually, he knows a lot of things and he is a highly knowledgeable person. He mentioned correctly that Trishu Sahasreshu. You should know the Sanskrit grammar. See, Sadatraye. Sadatraye means Sada 100, Traye 300. So it is 300. So without any word, that is either Adhiga or Uttara or the suffix of 7 vibhakti, that is Su. Here 3 is 300. 3. 3 Shu means 3 of 7th vibhakti of 3. Sahasreshu, Sahasra is 1000. Sahasreshu is 7th vibhakti of 1000. So here Sada is 100 and Traya is 100. If there is no word, it means that it is multiplication. Sada in Traya means 300. But 3 to Sahasres means it is addition. If we add Adhiga or Uttara or suffix of the 7th vibhakti, that it means addition. We should understand the method, how our ancestors expressed multiplication and addition, how they differentiated. If we know only, we can understand. So 3 to Sahasresu means 1003. So it is not 3000. So here also I doubt it that 3 Shu, how it has come. So during copying, because all these Purana are written in palm leaf manuscripts or some other leaf manuscripts, it has to be copied every 200 to 300 years because that palm leaf will be get damaged. So on copying, the copying person may not know Sanskrit fully or the events fully. And also during British colonial rule, they wantedly did it many mistakes because they want to reduce our antiquity and they want to reduce our belief on our Purana. So we have to doubt our Purana, we have to doubt our religion. Then only for them it will be easy for their motive, hidden agenda. So that has been corrupted. So it is a corrupted trading. We should not think our Purana as myth, as Adityaji told, because everything is Sat. It is all Sat only. It is not myth. So we have to understand properly. So sloga is corrupted during copying. And another thing is the Greek traveler's account. I want to explain a little bit. Because Arian, in his Indica, he mentioned that Dionysius to Sandrocotus is 6042 years and there are 153 kings. Dionysius was 15 generations earlier from Caracas. So that is the thing he mentioned about our kingdoms in India. But what he wrote, another thing is, before Dionysius, the Indians were barbarous. There were no towns, no temple. Only Dionysius taught Indians how to fluff in the land and do agriculture. Whether we can accept this, that is 6042 plus 320 plus 2000 years, that is 8,000 years before, we don't know how to do agriculture, and we have no towns, no temples, and we are barbarous Indians. Then somebody is telling that Ramayana happened in 12,000 years before. There were no towns. How there will be Ayodhya and Lanka as per Aryan statement? Further Aryan mentioned, but beyond Hypasis river, that is Bias river, the Sapta river of Punjab, we have no real knowledge of the country, that is India. He himself accepted they don't know anything about India. Then how can we accept this statement? And what Strabo mentioned about the writing, Aryans is lived 300 or 400 years after Megasthenes. Where is the source of his information? Because Aryan didn't visit India. He believed on Megasthenes and Eratosthenes and other Greek writers who accompanied Alexander or after Alexander. So, what these writings, that is based on which Aryan wrote all these things, that is Megasthenes writing and also Diamachus writing. What Strabo, the Greek person, Greek philosopher who lived in the 1st century BC, what he mentioned about all these persons, you have to read. The men who have written about India are a set of liars. Diamachus is first and Megasthenes comes next. No faith whatever can be placed in these two. What are all the evidence for this? You have to read Mackerendell's English translation of Indica of Megasthenes and Aryan. It is available as a book, you can read. These are all mentioned there. I have not added anything. Strabo's words are mentioned there, and also Aryan and all these wordings are mentioned there. Why Strabo mentioned like that? Though he is belong to the same nation, in spite of that, he told about their own person, a set of liars. Why? Because Megasthenes wrote what he found out in India. Men's ears were large enough to sleep in by another person. That much long ear, which can touch the foot, that much long ears are the thing the people had on those days. Men without mouths, without noses, and one-eyed persons with spider legs and toes pointing backwards, and gold digging ants that are in the size of fox. And also Aryan wrote that cotton is produced from trees. This is the actual things available in Megasthenes, and you can decide how we have to believe all these things. That's why Strabo writes that they are a set of liars and no faith whatever can be placed on these two. And another thing is, we cannot equate Heracles into Sri Krishna. That is also another thing. There is no text mentioned like that Heracles is Sri Krishna, even by Greek literature. That is only mere assumption. And Sandrocotus equating to Chandragupta Maurya is actually first coined by Sir William Jones, the English judicial officer who started Asiatic Society in the year 1784, January 15th. But he himself told that it is only an assumption and further analysis should be done. But H.H. Wilson and other Colonel Max Muller and other persons, they fixed it as it. So this is also doubtful. So Sandrocotus is not Chandragupta Maurya and Heracles is not Sri Krishna. So based on these things, it is only assumptions. By building a building using playing cards, that is the thing. So it is all an assumptions. And what is my humble opinion is, foreign texts cannot become an independent evidence. If they corroborate with our nation's evidence, we can accept it. If they are pointing against, we have to discard. This is my opinion. So now I am going to conclude. So there is a tin street anchor. That is Mahabharata date 3143 BCE and Kali Yuga epoch as per inscriptional evidence, that is 3101 BCE. Just 42 years, that is 36 plus years difference between Mahabharata war and Kali Yuga epoch. So they are the tin sweet anchor. Based on that only our history should be rewritten, not based on Alexander and Sandrocotus contemporary. That is a wrong sheet anchor. It is only a cheat anchor. It is not sheet anchor. So we should understand that. And this inscriptional evidence is strong. It is highly unrefutable and strong, concrete and conclusive and absolute, because nobody can alter. In literature, doing copying, they can alter, or some interpolations may be there. But in inscription, because it is written on the stone outside wall of the temple, anybody during that period can go and verify whether it mentions correct or not. And nobody can alter, nobody can interpolate, and it existed. So further, all over throughout the nation, though the inscriptions are separated by thousands of kilometers in various languages issued by various dynasties, they point one date, that is 3101 BCE. So it is an unrefutable, precise and absolute evidence. So based on this, I conclude with one saying from quantum physics. That is the quantum scientists, that is nuclear physicists, often say there is an inseparable quantum interconnectedness that exists between all the particles in this universe. In the same way, in history also, there is an inseparable chronological interconnectedness that exists between all historical events of our nation. So we cannot, everything is interconnected, interrelated, interwoven, and nothing is separate. So history is again become science. So history is arts, but nonetheless science, because due to the modern developments in historical research, we are using more science and other technology. So further, various dynasties of this nation, they have in between them either martial conflict or marital relationships. So there is an interconnectivity between all these inscriptions, all these dynasties. So everything is interrelated, interconnected, and interwoven. So hence, nothing is separate. So any historical event, the date of any historical event cannot be fixed separately. No historical event can be either pushed backward or forward. This applies to the date of Mahabharata, Kali Yuga, Ramayana, everything. So nothing is separate. We have to analyze everything in a holistic manner. Then only we can derive a correct date. So my conclusion is Mahabharata war date at 3143 BCE and Kali Yuga epoch at 3101 BCE. So these are all these evidence are available in my book, Astronomical Evidence of Date of Mahabharata War. Kindle edition is available in Amazon.in, Amazon.com, and Amazon.co UK. And Kali Yuga inscriptional evidence, it is only hard copy available through Amazon.in or Flipkart. We can buy. My website is Avinash Research, and I thank for my team, Vedic History and Science, who helped me a lot in preparing this PowerPoint presentation. I thank Aditya ji, Satralaji team, and also the professors, the respected professors, and also eminent scholars, and the budding scientists and the students of various universities who listened to this lecture fully and encouraged me. I thank you one and all. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Dr. Raja. Very beautiful presentation. So we have conclusively proved that, first of all, Mahabharata is a history.
Yes.
And we have proved that Mahabharata is more older than anything which the Western world claims, the entire
Yes.
academic world claims, because first of all, they don't understand Sanskrit. Plus, they create a very motivated translations of Sanskrit into English with and I have no hesitation in say that they have they have a ulterior objective. The ulterior objective is to destroy the faith of Hindus in Mahabharata and Ramayana, which is very clear. We have
Exactly.
And because the identity flows with the culture, if somebody doesn't have an identity, they can be easily made slaves. Like, for example, many people, if they live in India and they think their identity is from somewhere else, they will never work for India because the identity is gone. So everyone in India or in the world, because Mahabharata was spread all over the world, it's written in my two books, Narada, the Making of a Statesman, and Yudhishthira, the Greatest Emperor. In both two books, I have proved that Mahabharata has had a global spread, just like Ramayana also. So the whole world should actually respect this culture. This culture, Mahabharata is not just about the war. Mahabharata has much more than the war. War comes only in the fourth book, which is right in the middle.
Same. Vidya Bhishma Parva and other
Bhishma
Parva.
Parva. War is a very small part of the entire literature,
Yes.
but it tells you the history of creation from the time of Brahma to the end. And Vaishampaya, the disciple of Vyasdev, says that that if any history doesn't, actually Vyasdev says, if any history doesn't have a beginning in Mahabharata, that history itself is fake. So a lot of histories have been created uh, by disconnecting it from Mahabharata, and those histories are not real. Because, and you can see it, just recently it was proved that 80% narrations of Greek history are a mythology, real mythology. It was
Yes.
created in the academic rooms, like in some room, some scholars sat down. Most of the history of even the Roman history is fake. Most of the history written of the church by the church is also fake, because most of them is being documented. And I'm not saying it. You have to check on the Vatican. Go to the Vatican library and check it. I've been there 7 times just to check the history. And so they have derived the history from Egyptian Coptics, and most of the and people in India, they think that uh, Vatican has a very clean object. No, they have political objective. Political objective is to own the land, and we have seen that multiple times happening. So thank you all for watching it, and do watch it on YouTube and comment on it, and also start reading Mahabharata yourself. You don't have to rely on me and Dr. Raja to tell you. We write books based on what Vyasdev wrote. So, but we just give our commentaries. So make your faith stronger to read yourself. Proof of pudding is in the eating. As long as you see a jar of honey, by looking it from outside, you will never know the sweetness of honey. Same way, Mahabharata, just by looking at it or talking about it, you won't taste the sweetness. Open the pages and start reading in your own language. Mahabharata is available in more than 37 Indian languages right now, translated from Sanskrit to local languages. Get it from Gita Press, Gorakhpur. That's the best option. And there are Bhandarkar's edition is also there. So you can see both of them. Bhandarkar is published from Pune. So check it out and let us know. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Raja, for coming.
Thank you very much, Ji.